way, in life in general, mistakes are part of the journey.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Failures are part of the journey, right? There's that famous quote from J.D. Rockefeller that says, you can make every mistake in a book as long as you don't make a habit out of it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, you have to
Right?
learn
So
from it.
you make mistakes. The goal is for you to learn from them so you don't make the same or repeat the same mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a habit out of it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Alan K Show, where we're sitting down with the top agents, top team owners, and brokerage owners all over the country. And today I got one of our agents here at Best, the best brokerage in the world, and I'm a little bit biased. This individual's been in our world now for what, Omar, like 4 years? I think 3.5, 4 years? Been with us?
About 4 years now.
Oh, 4 years. He's been in the business for 25 years. Over 600 transactions closed, 200 million plus in sales. This guy not only does traditional sales, but also he does flips, averages about 4 to 5 flips every single year. And he's here today to not only share his journey, he's got a very epic journey, but also to share what he's doing in this market. And he's been part of like great markets and not so good markets for the last 25 years. So he's gonna share his entire playbook on what he's been doing as a top agent in the Valley. Omar, Zavaleta,
Alan,
welcome to the podcast.
thank you.
brother.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's start, and I got a bunch of questions for you, all right?
Okay.
A lot of them are gonna be tactical questions, all right? The things that you're doing, selling real estate, flipping real estate, all of that jazz. All of those things are gonna be important. But first, quickly, briefly, or you can take as much as you want to. You know, we got 3 hours here.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Share your journey. Share with the audience, you know, what it looked like for you in the beginning stages of your career, but maybe also like when you just got here, when you were like 14 years old, 15 years old?
15 years old.
15 years old from Mexico.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Let's start with that.
Okay. Well, just like many people here in the States, an immigrant
Yeah.
that came here to the States when I was only 15 years old, basically not knowing anything about what was going to happen to me, right? The only thing I had in mind was basically that I had to work really hard because I didn't want to be just another statistic. I just didn't want to be another number. I wanted to be something different. I didn't know at the time what I was going to be at, but I started, for the most part, I started in the hospitality industry. I was working with restaurants and hotels, and finally until the year 1999, a friend of mine basically told me about real estate, and I started looking into that, and I kind of felt like, you know what, maybe it's something that I could look into.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't even know it was going to be a career.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be another job, right? Little did I know that basically that shifting of the mind was basically going to take my life to a different level, to a place where I never even imagined I was going to be, because real estate has been so rewarding to me. I feel so lucky, so blessed to be in this position, because quite honestly, I never even imagined the things that I was able to accomplish through real estate. And I'm not telling you that to brag, but just basically to let you know that I feel blessed.
Yeah.
To be in this position.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you, Alan, can relate to that, being an immigrant yourself, that sometimes we don't even know how to dream when we're in our countries, right? You don't even know what we expect because we've never given an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
We've never an opportunity to become the person that you can become.
Yeah.
And once you're here, you see the abundance, right, on the table sometimes. I tell this to my kids, and sometimes they don't see all the abundance that's on the table right here. You see everything on the table, good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? But it's up to you whether you want to grab good things from the table or if you want to grab things that will make you sick, that will harm you, basically, right?
Yeah.
But everything's on the table.
Yeah.
And luckily, we both have decided to take the good things that are on this table and make the best of it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, man, there's so many things to unpack there. Like we were talking before the recording, how many similarities that we have. I mean, you came to this country when you were 15 years old.
Yes.
I came here when I was 13 years old. I came with literally, I think it was about $600 in our pockets. It was my parents, 2 of my siblings, with a dream, with the ability to make something out of our lives.
Yes.
Right? And I came from a very oppressive country, former Soviet Union. Communism, and you came from a country where it may not be oppressive, but there's a lot of corruption, and there's just not that much of opportunity.
Right.
Right. And I think in initial stages, I remember myself, and I share this with you, my dad decided to go back after about 6 months. He fell into this major depression. He decided to go back. So it was my mom. She was working multiple jobs.
Right.
It was me working after hours, after school, handing out flyers for $1.50 an hour. In your situation, you were in the hospitality world, probably doing all kinds of work.
Yeah.
And I think for both of us, and for most of the immigrants out there, I think the initial stages of our path is like fight or flight. We got to do everything.
Yeah.
We have to do everything just to like survive. Just to survive. And I remember like making $1.50 an hour. It wasn't a lot of money at that time, but I needed those $15 a day or $10 a day. And then it's like $75, $80 a week. And back in 1990, it was a lot of money. Well, it wasn't a lot of money, but you could still buy things with that kind of money,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
But whatever money I was able to make, I would give it to my mom so she can go out there and she can buy groceries and buy certain things. So this way we don't feel like we are like destitute or we are, starving or anything like that. So with real estate though, so from age 15 to about age 29, 30, you're in hospitality. Right. What excited you to get into the real estate?
It was actually by accident, like I said before. At the time, I had been let go of my manager job at one of the restaurants that I was working with. So
What was the name of the restaurant?
But I don't want to say.
Are they still around?
No, they're not around
Oh, so
anymore.
you should say that.
Okay. It was called Taste of Philadelphia. Okay. So at the time, I was let go because they were thinking about doing something different, and they were no longer going to be able to pay me what I was getting paid as a manager.
Yeah.
So they basically made the executive decision to let me go. So I basically was without a job. I had signed out for a retreat, and in retreat, I basically met a guy who was studying for his real estate exam. And I asked him if I could read what he was reading, right? So he showed me what he was doing, and I was like, okay, well, this sounds very interesting. And he kind of mentioned to me, wait, if you like it, why don't you give it a try?
Yeah.
So after retreat, I went to school. I took my license.
How long did it take you to get your license?
It took me about a year because at the time
It took you a year to get your real estate license?
Yes. I passed my state exam the first time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I wasn't able to afford to pay for all the licensing, all the fees and things like that.
Yeah.
Because at the time, like I said before, I didn't have a steady job.
Yeah.
And I still have the responsibility of paying for my mortgage, my car,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
family.
Sure.
At the time, I only have my oldest kid. But
Yeah.
that's why it took me a little bit longer to get my license. Right after that, it was, I always think about me in real estate as I don't know. I think it was meant to be. Like I said, at the time, I didn't know what to expect from real estate.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like I needed to have a job. When I first got my license, that's a funny story. When I first got my license, the guy that introduced me to real estate told me, okay, you should go talk to my broker because he was already working with a broker, right? I went and talked to the broker.
Yeah.
And guess what happened? The broker basically told me, I'm sorry, we're not hiring right now.
Wow.
Flat out. Because I told him I was new, right?
Yeah.
I told him I was new. I didn't have any experience. And I told him, my friend referred me to you, and he told me that maybe I should come talk to you, and maybe you can hire me. And that specific broker flat out told me, you know what, we're not necessarily hiring right now. Maybe you should go a different direction. Funny
Like a
thing
different
is,
direction, like not do real estate, or a different direction, like going maybe
I'm
applying
not necessarily
to another brokerage.
maybe with a different brokerage,
Yeah.
right?
Is the broker still around?
No, they're not around
Okay,
anymore.
so you can probably name their name.
No, I'm not going to name that. Okay. But the thing is, here's what happened. That specific day when I went to apply for a job, right, with the broker,
Yeah.
there was another broker that basically had severed from that firm.
Uh-huh.
So he saw me walking in and talking to the designated broker, and he actually waited for me to get out of the meeting, the broker, right? When I got out of my meeting with the broker, he was in the waiting area, and he goes like, Omar, right? I'm like, yes. He was like, hey, can I talk to you for a little bit? And I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. I was kind of down, right? Because I was just, I barely had spoken to the guy, and he told me, hey, you should take a hike and go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
But he basically told me, you know what? I am severing from this firm, and I'm opening my own brokerage. Do you want to join me? So talk about like roller coasters, right? scenarios from going, very excited in the morning to talk to the broker and then he told me, go take a hike. And then I find out that he's another broker, that he's opening his own shop. And I was the first guy that he hired because I happened to be talking to him.
Yeah.
So as soon as we finished talking, he went ahead and he put me on his brokerage. Mm-hmm. So I was like the number one agent that he ever hired. Long story short, after the second year, I was his number one agent. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, I was his number one agent. And at the time, it wasn't necessarily because I knew a whole lot about real estate, because honestly, true, I didn't know anything about real estate. I just knew that I needed to provide my family with food. I needed to provide a shelter. I needed to make sure that we were okay, just like I have done in the past, right?
Yeah.
But luckily, real estate gave me the opportunity to not just survive, but thrive, right? To do a lot of the things that I wasn't even thinking about, doing. And little by little, I basically learned more about real estate because I was basically thrown into the fire.
Now, how you were dealing with all of that? I mean, look, at that time you were already married, right? You had at least one kid, right?
Yes, Mom.
Obviously, real estate is, it's people say it's a simple business, but I mean it's a tough business to be in, right? It's not easy, right? I think you and I were talking about this before. Like 71% of the agents last year in 2024 did not even close one deal. Brand new agents, I think 60% of them do like 10,000 or less in commissions in the first year, right? And then just overall, I think 90+% of agents go out of business in 5 years, right? So all of those stats are against agents, right? It doesn't matter what market, and obviously in the last few years has been even tougher market, but you see in all the markets, you see great markets, bad markets, right? Good markets again, not so good markets, right? Kind of walk us through your first 6 to 12 months, the first 24 months. The reason I'm asking is because when I got my real estate license, my first 6 months were tough.
Oh yeah.
Really tough, Just like you, married, 3 kids under age of 5, at least $5,000 or $6,000 in expenses every single month. My wife was working, but she was not making $6,000 a month. So I had to make money, and I had to make money as quickly as possible. And at first, getting into the real estate, I was thinking that, oh shit, I'm gonna make money right away. And it took me 6 months to finally get my first listing. And it was like a $100,000 listing, right? It was a $2,500 commission check, right? That first 6 months though were brutal for me, because every day I would come home and I would not have anything to show for. So how were you dealing with that initial 6 to 12 months as a brand new agent? Did you start closing deals right away, or it took you some time?
No, actually it happened, what happened to me was very similar to what happened to you. The first 6 to 8 months was really tough for me in real estate. Yeah. To the point where it made me doubt that if I was doing the right thing, because at the time I had to work at a different job that I never worked before. I had to take on a car sales job, and I never felt good about that.
Dude, I cannot see you selling cars.
No. I did that for 1 year, and that was enough for me. You know what I mean?
You did it for a year?
For a year.
Wow.
I don't think I ever want to go back to that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's what I had to do, right? Yeah. Again, why did I have to do that? Because for me, there was no other option. I wasn't going to go home and say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't afford to pay for food, or I can't afford to buy whatever's necessary, right? I had to do what I had to do in order to make it work. So the first 8 months in real estate were kind of tough.
Yeah.
Luckily, my first transaction, I remember my wife basically had spread the word with some relatives of her, and one relative of her actually called me out of the blue, and he goes hey, can you help me find a house?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Sure, I got all the time in the world, right? I got no business whatsoever, right? So basically, that's how it started. That specific family, which at this point I'm still very good friends with.
Yeah.
Throughout my journey, I think most of the families that I've been able to help, I became friends with them, because we relate into a lot of things. A lot of them were immigrants as well, and I can definitely see them through a different scope, through a different angle. That a lot of times I don't think necessarily every agent has the ability to look at them that way. But so that's how it started. My first home was only $80,000 home, but like you said, it was a little bit over $2,000 on commission.
Yeah.
That was just enough to pay for my bills, right?
That's right.
But that's how it started. And then he referred me to another member of his family, And then that member of the family referred me to a couple other, of his coworkers.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. I finally was able to quit my car sales job
Yeah.
and concentrate everything in real estate. Again, I didn't know a whole lot about the business of real estate. I just knew that I needed to work really hard. I was not afraid to work because I had done that all my life. I was putting crazy hours. I was putting like at least 16, 17 hours a day
Yeah.
in real estate.
Yeah.
And I never gave up because I remember I was so hungry for paycheck that once I had a prospect, let's say a family that wanted to buy a house, I didn't take a break. I spent days together with them until I finally found a house. That's how I felt I was securing a steady paycheck for my family. And that's basically the one thing I have to say, that I was never really afraid of putting out the hours, putting out the work.
Yeah.
And I think that made the difference when I became a real estate agent, that most people knew that I worked really hard for my commission. I really, became the go-to guy because they knew that once they got to my hands, it was a done deal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I helped them find, the right lender, the right home inspector, the right escrow officer, and that's how I kind of like created my own team. Making sure that I had the right lenders, making sure that I had the right escrow officers, the right inspection companies. Back then, the lenders were able to actually choose whoever the appraisal was, and that's how I got to know a lot of the appraisals as well. So, we kind of like work together as a team in order to accomplish the things that we wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I tell you, real estate is, I tell this all the time, real estate is such a beautiful vehicle to be in. And I know the last 3 years haven't been easy, right? They've been tough, but just still, there's just so much opportunity out there.
Yeah.
Right. And if you lead with value and you provide, like in your situation, you said that you have the same clients from 25 years ago and you provide that exceptional service to, right? Your business is going to continue to grow, right? So like in your situation, kind of walk us through your, and I'm assuming most of your business is coming from your referrals, right? Most of your business is coming from your past clients, from your sphere. What are you doing to stay in front of them? What are you doing in terms of marketing? What are you doing to make sure that they still have you on top of their mind versus like somebody else?
Okay. Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't do a lot of marketing. Oh, maybe I don't do enough marketing, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
But I've always keep in touch with them, like with phone calls whenever I see them, in their family reunions. I still go there. They still invite me to their family parties. I kind of feel good because the first generation that hired me as a realtor kept me on their minds. And now that they have kids of their own, now that their children are in the process of buying, they refer me to their children. So now it's like the second time around, but now their kids are buying homes, right?
Yeah.
And they a lot of them actually know what we do as a side business on the flipping business, and they also want to be part of that. So that's how I, for the most part, try to keep in touch with all of them. Phone calls and Facebook, sometimes Instagram, things of that nature. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So a lot of it is really you genuinely investing time in their lives, right? Calling them, going there, meeting with them, attending their events, all of that, which is super important. So let's talk about the flipping side of the business. When did you start getting into the flips?
Well, I started in 2005. That was my first flip. I didn't even know what a flip was, but I just knew that I wanted to buy a house.
Yeah.
And at the time, I wanted to have it as a second home. But as I was flipping it, as I was fixing it with my crew back then, I happened to have somebody that lived next door, and that person had somebody, I think it was his relative, if I'm not mistaken, a relative of his that wanted to move closer to him, right? And since he knew we were fixing that house, he just kind of called me out of the blue. He goes like, "Hey, are you gonna rent or are you gonna sell that house?" At the time, I wanted to rent it, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, but if the right price comes along, I could sell it. So he shared my phone number with the other guy, the other family member. The other family member calls me and he was like, "Hey, I want to buy that house." I mean, I didn't even market it. He just called me out of the blue, and I said, "Okay, well, this is how much I want. Are you willing to pay for that?" He goes like, "Yeah." that's fine. You know, and just like that.
And that's how it started.
That's how it started.
So that was back in 2005. So 20
2005,
years, right?
yeah.
So since then, how many homes did you flip?
My goodness. I want to say it over the last 5 years, we flipped about 24 houses.
Okay, so you're averaging about 5 or so a year.
More or less, yeah.
And then-
This year's been kind of slow,
Yeah.
and slow kind of end. But
Yeah.
like I was telling you, you know, it's part of the business. I can't really expect to have the business all the way like a straight line. You know, I have to take the good with the bad. Sometimes we had good years, and sometimes, you know, you got to stick with, you know, what God's been given to you.
Well, you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt,
Yep.
right? I mean, the survival of the fittest is not the strongest. It's someone who's actually going to be able to adapt to changes and challenges, right?
That's right.
So in your situation, you're all about adaptability. You've been doing this for 25 years. So you've seen the highs in the market, 2003, 2004, 2005, right? You've seen the lows in the market in 2007, 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah.
So tell us like your situation, your business, what it looked like back during the Great Recession, right? Of 2007, 8, 9, and 10.
Okay. You know, a lot of times I see my business as a reflection of my life. When I really think about it, I see sometimes we have good days, sometimes we don't have good days. Sometimes, you know, for some people, you know, life can be a tragedy or horrible, you know. That's just part of life. It's just that good things will happen to everybody and bad things will happen to everybody as well, right? It's what you do with those things that happen to you that make the difference in the outcome.
Yeah.
You mentioned 2008, 2007. It was really a bad situation for not just me, obviously, for a lot of people, right? We didn't really expect to be that bad, right? But life went on after that time, right? We lost it all. I personally lost pretty much all my properties. I had a lot of investment properties, and I pretty much lost everything except my primary house. Thank God that I was able to keep that house. But other than that, I pretty much lost everything. I had to start from scratch again. But I kind of figured, you know what? Even in the worst case scenario, I'm still better off than a lot of people in different places in this world. So for that, I still felt blessed. Even though I was down because I lost a lot of money, I lost a lot of my investment properties, but I still felt blessed because I was in a place where I knew I could come back and be stronger because I have learned from the experience, right?
Yeah.
Even in a loss, I want the experience. I'm not putting myself in that position anymore. So therefore, I started working hard again. I started working again 15, 17 hours a day. I started again with fix and flips, little by little. At the time, I didn't even know what a hard money lender was.
Yeah.
And I started getting to know, how the game, like you said, adapting to the game, right? Because it was totally different.
Yeah.
And I had to break out from the comfort zone of maybe you need to step out to a different type of financing with the hard money loans, and maybe you need to do something different in order for you to be in the same situation if this ever happens again.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of risk again in order for me to get out of the hole, let's put it that way.
How long did it take you to get out of the hole?
I want to say it a good 3 years.
Yeah. Same thing for me. For me, it was 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I man, we got so many similarities, and I can relate to exactly the same thing that you were going through back in 2006, 7, 8.
Yeah.
I lost all of my properties, including my personal residence.
Okay.
You know, I had to significantly downsize my company. I had a luxury transportation business with 40 employees. We reduced it to a handful.
Oh, yeah.
Right. A lot of our cars were either sold or repossessed. I think at one point I was close to $500,000 in debt, maybe even more. It was tough. But I'm blessed actually that I had to go through that because all of them were just learning opportunities for me to get where I'm at right now. Right. And there were many, don't get me wrong, I mean, there were many weeks and months and months and months where honestly I just didn't feel like get out of bed. Right. And I think the only thing that was really kind of pushing me forward is seeing my wife and seeing my kids. I was like, I cannot do this to them.
Yeah.
I cannot do this to them, right? I got to figure out how to get over this. And again, it's not the the strongest. Usually, it's the ones that adapt and change and pivot. And I had to pivot my business, right? Where instead of doing all the retail, like limos and party buses, it became all corporate, where it's all executive sedans and motor coaches and all of that stuff, right? So for you, it was three 3 years. For me, it was 3 years. And like during that period of time, I remember like renting is not fun.
No,
You know,
no.
like at least in your situation, you held to your own personal residence,
Right,
right?
yeah.
In
Luckily,
my
yeah.
situation, I had no choice. I was upside down on every property that I had. It was horrible.
Yes,
It was horrible, man.
I know exactly what you're saying, and like I told you before, it was an experience, and I tell you why I learned a lot from that experience. Okay, remember when the houses went down to like $50,000, $60,000, right? And knowing that they were so cheap, and I had no money to my name, right? I just sat like opportunity after opportunity went by, and then I'm like, okay, how come I'm not able to buy something that I was able to afford so easily in the past, right?
Yeah.
And I started like dealing with investors that, luckily for them, they were able to save a little bit of money, and they were buying these properties cash. You know, like normal people,
The were, you're absolutely right, you know. But I honestly, I was so shell shocked back in 2008 with real estate. I didn't want to think about real estate. I didn't want to look at real estate. I didn't want to talk about real estate. Just get the real estate out of my way because I was so like traumatized.
Yeah.
With the foreclosure process, with the short sale process, losing my home and everything like that. But then I remember when I got my real estate license, I was helping the investors in 2013, like in 14, to buy properties for like 120,000, 100,000, for 80,000 in the outskirts of the valley. Now they're worth probably 350, 400, 400, 500,000 dollars. But at that time, I was like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it, which is a huge mistake, by the way. But we learn, we you know. By the way, in life in general, mistakes are part of the journey.
oh yeah, definitely.
Failures are part of the journey, right? There's that famous quote from J.D. Rockefeller that says, you can make every mistake in a book as long as, and I'm paraphrasing, as long as you don't make a habit out of it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, you gotta
right?
learn
So
from it.
you make mistakes. The goal is for you to learn from them so you don't make the same or repeat the same mistake over and over again. You don't want to make a habit out of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, you know, I learned the hard way too that a lot of the investors I was talking about that were buying these properties for 50, 60, 80,000 homes.
Yeah.
They didn't really have all the money in their in the bank, right? But they were using the hard money lenders. To me, that was kind of like, wait, I don't even want to touch a hard money lender because their interest rates are so high.
Yeah.
But that was me thinking as a realtor. That was me thinking as a normal person, right? It wasn't me thinking as an investor.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned, that becoming a real estate investor is a total different ballgame.
Yeah.
You know, you got to think outside the box. You got to do things differently. And that was how they were able to get out of the hole because they took the risk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They took the initiative, and they were the ones that taught me, the real estate agent, the top producer back then, how to be a better investor.
Yeah.
You got to do things differently in order to get different results, right? So
let's talk about the investment part of it. Let's go into tactics, right? You've been flipping now since 2005. You flip probably, I would not be surprised, over 100 plus homes, maybe even more, right? Maybe even more. So what is your buy box? Let's say, for example, and I know it changed and shifted in the last few years, right? But like ideally, what are you looking for in the investment opportunity when you're looking to flip?
You know, like you said, as time goes by, things shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Your way of thinking as an investor also changed. And it has to do a lot with how the market behaves. You know, it has to do a lot with whether we have a buyer's or a seller's market, right? Because you know that sometimes in markets where you buy a house and no matter how good of a price you get or how bad of a price you get it, you're still going to sell it for a profit, right?
Yeah.
As long as you keep it, right?
Yeah, seller's market.
This is seller's market, right?
Yep.
Sometimes, no matter what you do to the property, even if you spend so much money, even $100,000, you're probably gonna even just break even, right? So you have to adapt to all that. So I don't necessarily have a buy box. I try to do my homework as much as possible based on the market, based on the needs, based on what I've known so far. But at the end of the day, it's still a risk. It's not a science, you know, where every single one of your projects, every single one of your fix is going to be a profitable one.
Yeah.
Because I've been on the other side of the business where I had to take a loss on a few of them, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's part of the game, right? Like a poker game, right? You go to the casino and you don't expect to win all the time, right? Every single hand. But at the end of the day, you expect to win. You expect to be on the winning end at the end of the game,
Yeah.
right? Not necessarily all the hands, but at least most of them.
Yeah.
And that's basically how I see it. I understand that even though I may do all my homework as much as I can, trying to put all the resources together and try to minimize my risk, there's still a chance that that specific project isn't going to pan out the way I want it to.
Yeah, right. So obviously there are different types of markets out there, right? There's a seller's market, there's a buyer's market, there's somewhere in between, like a balanced market. Like, so in some areas of the valley, we're probably in a buyer's market. So the market we're in a balanced market. I'm not sure if there are any areas in the valley where it's a seller's market, right? Unless of course it's under maybe like 400,000, 350, you're probably still going to get multiple offers.
Right.
But I guess my question is, and probably audience will have the same questions. Like, all right, so let's say for example, it's a balanced market. Okay, what would be your investment criteria? What are the 2, 3, 4 things that you're looking for when you're making an investment, when you're purchasing a property for a flip?
Okay, first of all, I want to see if there's a lot of houses or if there's a lot of properties in that specific area on the market. The more houses that I see on the market, the less likely I'm to buy in that area. Why? Because there's something that is basically making a lot of people sell.
Gotcha.
So I try not to buy where I see a lot of
like active homes on the market?
On the market,
okay,
right?
Got it.
So if I go to an area, then I drive by the area and see what the houses look like.
Yeah.
And I try to go and find like the ugliest house in the nicest area and try to make an offer on that specific home. And if they say yes, then I know that I can fix it the way I want it to make it maybe one of the better homes in that specific area. But I don't expect to have like the highest price per square footage, or I don't expect to have the highest price on my flip. I'm more of a realistic guy where if I want to sell right away once it's all fixed and flipped, I need to price it accordingly. Not necessarily the highest one on the market, but I still want to make sure that people see more value, that people can see that, they're not only getting a good product, but a fair price. See what I mean? So that's why I try not to keep my fix and flips for a long time.
Okay. So what does it look like in terms of like dollars and cents? Let's say, for instance, their investors say, look, I'm willing to pay up to 70% of the ARV, right? Or 65% of the ARV, right? What does that look like for you when you're analyzing a property? Let's say, for example, you like the neighborhood. There's not a lot of activity in that neighborhood. You found that ugly house, right? And you're like, okay, this is the ideal house for me to make it very pretty, right? What does the numbers look like for you? What are you looking for?
Okay, I don't have a specific formula, to be quite honest with you. I just go out there, see the house, and I can try to put the numbers together as far as how much money I'm going to put into it, right? And I obviously know that once I get done with the house, I more or less have an idea of how much I'm going to put it on for sale, right? And if I have enough room in there where I can put all the number, all my costs, and still have a decent profit, then I can make an offer on, let's say, 70% ARV.
So if, let's say, for example, the ARV is $500,000, right? How much would you pay tops for the house?
Depending on how much of repairs, we're talking about, I want to say about anywhere between 300 to 350 at the most.
So from 300 to 350, right? And the repairs are going to run you how much approximately?
Anywhere between 50 to 80.
50 to 80,000. Got it. Okay, so you spend 350, you then spend another 80,000, which is on the high end, right? So now we're looking at around, 530,000, right? We're going to have about $20,000 in holding costs. Is that right?
More or less, yeah.
I mean, you're probably taking the hard money. Right? So 530 plus 20, that's 430 plus 20 is 450, right? And if you sell it for 500, there's going to be probably a commission there paid to the agent. So what is the margin that you're looking for?
In like a $500,000, I'm looking, if I only have to spend about 3 months worth of work, between the time when I buy to the time I sell, I try to make at least about 50. Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
okay.
that's basically the bottom line. If we can get better, then so be it. But at least we try to get about 50 per flip.
Yeah. So I think in order for you to get 50 in that particular scenario, you probably want to buy it no more than 320, 325.
Right. That's why I was telling you
Right.
between 3 and 350 at the most. Obviously, if you go 350, it's because you're not going to spend as much money, most
Yeah.
likely.
Yeah.
Right. But if you only offer 300, because most likely you're going to be putting more money into it in
Yeah.
order to make it to the 500,000.
So how do you determine how much it will actually cost you to rehab that particular house?
Well, I have a crew that more than one crew that I work with.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know them for quite some time already. You know, I've worked with them for at least, my first crew, I started working with them for at least 15 years. And the second crew, I've been working with them for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of know each other, you know, and we kind of have an idea as far as how much money we're going to put into it. Obviously, things can fluctuate a little bit, but for the most part, we try to be realistic as far as how much money it's going to take. And that's basically what determines whether or not we actually pull the trigger on a flip. Yeah.
Okay, so like for example, labor costs are went through the roof in the last 3 years, 4 years, right?
Yes.
Obviously, material costs went through the roof in the
Right.
last 3 or 4 years. Like so kind of give us an idea. Like let's say you get into a house, it needs new flooring. Let's say for instance, it's laminate flooring or engineered wood flooring. How much would say your crew would charge for labor costs per square foot?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you how I work with my crew. Okay.
Okay.
With my crew, basically, I gave them the whole project,
Okay,
so they give me a price
on the entire.
and the entire project.
Okay.
So we're talking about flooring, we're talking about kitchen cabinets, countertops, bathroom remodeling, light fixtures, you name it.
Yeah.
So they give me a whole number for the entire project. So based on that number,
That's including the materials.
for the most part, I buy the materials on
So
my
you
own.
buy the materials, they charge you for labor.
Right.
Got it.
So that's how it worked out. And again, depending on the area, I decide how much or the type of materials that I want to put into the project.
Right.
Because obviously, if I'm gonna be fixing a house in North Scottsdale, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have different type of materials that, you know, if I go somewhere else. So that's why I have to take like the project like on a case by case basis. Let's put it that way. So by the end of the day, like I told you, you know, the numbers have to be right. And if I see myself working in this specific property for about 3 months, I have to, based on my numbers, I have to come up with at least 50 as a profit. Everything is said and done. At least. Obviously, the more the merrier, but you know, if it's gonna net me less than 50, I won't do the deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
If my numbers don't give me 50 when I first go into the property,
Yeah.
I just passed on the property.
You just pass on a property.
Yeah.
Have you considered maybe wholesaling it instead?
Well, because that's how I get most of the properties through wholesalers.
Oh, through wholesalers.
Right.
Okay, got you. So based on your analysis, you're like, all right, there's not enough meat on the bone.
Exactly.
Right. So you pass.
So I just
So you're
passed.
very selective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I want to make sure that, you know, that everybody is basically happy when it comes to that. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Do you keep any of the properties?
Some of them.
Some of them. Okay,
Yeah, I
you do.
try not to hold on to every single one of them.
Okay.
I have some rentals here and there, but for the most part, it's fix and flip.
Fix and flip.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that is trying to get into the fix and flip business? You know, right now, you know, what are the things, for example, they would have to do on their end to really get going? And obviously, the most important thing, I feel like, when it comes to the fix and flip business, aside from having the right crew, is you got to buy it correctly.
Yeah.
Like the name
Yeah.
of the game is buying it correctly.
You got to buy it right. Yeah. You
Because
got
if
to
you buy it right, like you can make some mistakes. There are going to be some cost overruns, but at the end, you're
Yeah.
still going to come away with a profit. Not maybe as big of a profit as you anticipated, but a profit, right?
Yeah.
But what else would you recommend or suggest?
You know, again, when you think as an investor, you have to forget about thinking as a homeowner, okay? Because when you try to buy a house for your own, as a homeowner, you try to get the best out there, right? You're looking for every little detail to get the perfect house. As an investor, you don't necessarily have to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to fall in love with the deal, not necessarily with the house.
Yeah.
The house can be changed. Because I can guarantee you that as a first-time homeowner or as a owner-occupied, if you take the specific client or a client to the property that I'm gonna buy as an investor, they're gonna walk out of the house and say, "No way, I'm gonna be buying that house when I first buy it," right? But the same person goes back to the house when it's all complete.
Yeah.
They're just gonna fall in love with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the trick, right? That's the thing. We buy it wholesale, like you said.
So you have to almost kind of like envision it beyond with everything that you see right now. Like the worse the house looks, the better the opportunity.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but
the
most
more
of the time.
potential.
The more potential, the better the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like I remember I had one house that, oh my God. The house had like maybe 8 or 9 dogs and like, 5 or 6 cats.
Cats
And
are the worst.
Cats are the worst. And most of their business was done inside of the house.
Okay.
Not outside of the house. In fact, the outside of the house, the backyard, had a pool and it was like spotless. The backyard was spotless. The inside of the house, it had layers and layers and layers and layers of
Yeah.
poop.
Yeah.
Right? So it took us like weeks
To get
we
rid of-
hired like a hazmat team, like to get all of that shit out. Literal shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously.
I've seen that so many times.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I still remember like going through the house and just like, when you not only smell it, but you can actually taste it. Like I would get home and before I walk into the house in a garage, I would like take all of my clothes out because it was just unbearable. Right.
Yeah.
And it took us weeks to clean all of that up. Forget about doing all the other upgrades or rehab. Like took us weeks to get all of that stuff done, right? Yeah. But it generated a good profit at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Now, 99.9% of the people would just walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
Just walk away.
And you have to be the 1% willing to take that risk, right?
Yeah.
Willing to pay the price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. As an agent, if I just think about it as an agent, I probably wouldn't want to be in that position, right? But as an investor, it's a different story because you're not thinking, okay, I want to make this commission right now. I want to go for the home run.
Yeah.
Right. But in order for me to be able to get the home run, I need to pay this price. I can almost guarantee that a lot of agents would not even go in there, like you said, with all of those dogs and cats and smells and you name it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think also as an agent, I think as agents, we got to give options to our clients. Right.
Yes.
Like not everybody wants to list their house. Not everyone's positioned to list their house. Right.
Exactly.
There are different type of situations that are going on, circumstances, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so I really truly believe that in order for us to provide the most amount of value when we go and meet the seller for the first time is to give that seller options, right? And if the option is, look, Alan, I don't want to list my house. I don't want to clean this. I don't want to fix this. I just want to sell it,
Yes.
right? And I'm not going to get the retail price for it, but if I can get 70% or 75% or 65% of the AR. You can do this in the next 10 days or 15 days, right? I'm good with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I like that better versus, putting it on the market, right? And listing it and then waiting for it. Like all of that stuff is not for everyone, right? So I think as an agent, you should be equipped to go out there and give options
Yes.
to the seller,
Right.
Especially if you're going to be pretty heavy into a listing game. I think you as a seller, as an agent, if you don't have those options or don't offer those options to buy it or have the network of investors to make an offer and potentially buy it, right? I think you're putting yourself and your business in a huge disadvantage.
Yeah. And we talk about being able to adapt. If you want to say maybe about 10, 15 years ago, we probably wouldn't even have this conversation because a lot of those things, I don't want to say did not exist, but we weren't used to that, right? We were just so used to being the retail agent that only wanted to list a nice property and the house will sell right away.
Yeah.
But now there's more options out there.
Yeah.
There's more ways to skin a cat, I
Yeah,
guess.
of course.
Right? With technology and more things available to our hands, now we can provide all those services to clients or even investor buyers, right? Because they want to get into the game as well.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily looking for a retail house. They want to be able to buy an SS house, right? Where they can, make the repairs themselves. Eventually being able to put it on the market and use our services as well, realtors, and we can provide those services to them as well.
Yeah.
So there's so much out there, and you learn all that, with experience, you know.
How much time are you spending? Let's say, for example, at one point you and I were talking. You had like 2 or 3 flips going at the same time. How much time are you spending on average per flip?
I try to keep it within 3 months, but
Yeah.
some take longer. Like I've last year, was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. Okay, I started the year before, but I finished it last year, right? That project was the one that took me the longest because it was a house in Scottsdale. Like, it was like a horror house, man. I never put so much work into a house like I did on that one.
Yeah.
And it just came out beautiful. But when we first got it, the gentleman that sold it to us basically had so much crap in their house. I mean, we're talking about inside and outside, in the front yard, the backyard,
Yeah.
everywhere. It was
The gentleman was a collector.
Yes, and it
crap.
just took us like so much time to get
Yeah,
that thing.
yeah.
But the funny thing is, I remember that he went out of town, right? When he sold the house to us,
Yeah.
he was going out of town, and he was like, "But I still have some relatives here that I may come back eventually." He almost, shat on his pants when he went back to the house once it was completed. He could not recognize that house. That's how much we changed that house. I've been the owner of the house for the last 30 years. He would not believe what we did to the house.
So do you mind going to the specifics, going through the numbers of that particular house, right? Like how much did you pay for the house? What were the rehab costs, holding costs, and how much did you sell it for?
We bought it for $476, and the holding cost on that was about 30 grand.
Okay.
Okay. And on that specific one, we spent more than 120 on repairs.
Got it. So 476, holding cost $30,000. That's 506, and then $120,000 in rehab. That's 626.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that
Somewhere
neighborhood.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. How much did you sell it for?
We sold it for $749, I think. It was.
$749.
Yeah.
Minus the commission.
No, we're talking about
That's
like
all-
all. Yeah.
Okay, so you made a profit of about $120,000, $115,000.
And that's the project that took me the longest,
How long did it take you?
about 8 months.
8 months. 8 months to make about $120,000.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
about $12,000 to $13,000 a month.
somewhere in there.
Somewhere
neighborhood. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean,
And how much time do you feel like you spend, like all together, like managing, obviously sourcing and then managing the project, right? Like how much time did it take in hours, you think?
I spend a good 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe 5 days a week. in
2 to 3
projects.
hours a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Projects like that, yeah. Because I always like to be on top of things, making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to.
So you're there, you're monitoring.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Obviously, that's part of my side job, right?
Sure.
Other than being the realtor, when
Yeah.
as soon as I have a chance, when I don't have, let's say, I don't have a house to show, or I don't have an open house, I don't
Yeah.
have a listing appointment, I go go to my projects to make sure that, that everybody's doing what they're supposed to. I don't necessarily tell the crew, hey, I'm going to be here this time. I just show up and say, hey, what's going on here? They know that I'm always there, just in case something happens.
Yeah. So your crews, one of them you said you have a relationship now for 15 years, the other one you have for 10 years, right? It's very unusual in this business, right? Because crews come, crews go. I mean, there's always something, right? So I guess, again, if I'm just starting in the flipping business, want to get going, like what do I look for in a crew?
Okay, I guess in the flipping business, it's not just necessarily about the crew, but you gotta put together the right team. That includes not obviously the crew is one of the most important things that you need to put together, but you also need to be in touch with a good lender, right?
Like a hard money lender.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Because obviously there's so much out there, especially nowadays, there's so much out there. When I first started, I basically didn't have a lot of options. So I paid a lot of interest and I paid a lot of fees. But as time goes by and as you experience, everything, every single deal is different. Nowadays, I have to be involved with better lenders that I didn't have access to when I first started. So to make a long story short, nowadays it costs me less to borrow from hard money lenders, right? But obviously I had to go through all the bad ones in order to find the good one.
What does it cost you right now, interest-wise?
Depending on the money that I'm willing to put down, anywhere between...
Let's say 10% down.
You probably can get about 8% or 9%.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
And how many points?
1.5.
1.5?
Yeah. There's some caveats to that, though. They want you to have so much experience. Your FICO score needs to be a certain way.
Oh, they check your FICO score as well?
Yes, the ones that give you the really good rates, they're FICO driven. They don't necessarily want to see your tax returns or your income, but they want to make sure that you have good FICO scores, and that the number of projects that they have in mind, it's gonna line up with.
Yeah, they want to see your past history. They want to see if they're working with somebody who has the experience, who has the knowledge, right, and expertise versus someone who's a newbie.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many lenders do you work with? Do you work with just one, or you
No,
have
no.
multiple?
As far as the hard money lenders, I work with about 4 or 5 different ones,
Oh, wow.
depending on the situation. Again,
Interesting.
yeah, and again, because I also help some of my investor clients, I can relate to them, and I can say, hey, based on your situation, maybe you should try this one or this one, and that's how they get their own deals as well.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So lender is important, right? Hard money lender. What else?
Because you have to make a decision almost right away when it comes to investment properties, because there's always a lot of competition. You have to have a little bit of knowledge. You don't have to know everything, but you have to have a little bit of knowledge of what construction's all about.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you keep an eye on the big ticket items, roof, AC, electrical, plumbing. A lot of the other stuff, it's going to be a given anyway. Like tile, we're going to make sure that it's taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's a given, right? But you want to make sure that you don't have like a lot of big ticket expenses in the middle of a transaction.
Do you do inspections before you close?
99% of the time, we don't.
99% of the time, you don't. So how do you know if, let's say, for example, if plumbing is not
Sometimes you
plugged?
get that's the risk you take. That's the risk you take, right? As an investor, that's the risk you take.
Wow.
Yeah, and trust me, it has been me in the butt a couple times,
Yeah.
But a lot of times, it's just the risk it takes. One story, I remember one day we had to replace the whole sewer system, right? And it wasn't expected. But because we had to change the whole sewer system or replace that, it took us back like about a month on the rehab, right? But luckily, because we waited a little bit longer, we were able to sell the house a lot higher than what I was expecting to sell for. So in the long run, it kind of worked out okay, but you're not always that lucky. You know what I mean? Sometimes, you just have to, again, you have to be willing to take the risk a lot of times. Try to minimize the risk as much as possible, but sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah. Going back to my question about the crew, though. Okay. Like, what are you looking for in a crew?
Okay, honesty,
Honesty.
hardworking, and knowledge
Okay.
of what they're doing.
How do you know they're honest? How do you know they're hardworking if you don't have an experience with that?
Well, in my case, I had to give the crew a little by little. I didn't give them like the whole project, right? I started giving them, okay, why don't you do this job? Let me see how you do it. And I want to make sure that you actually do what you're supposed to. And let me see what your job looks like. And that's how basically we started.
Yeah.
With that, little by little.
So you don't give everything right off the bat and say, look,
no.
you do all of the job, right?
Right.
So you test them out piece by piece and see what kind of work they do.
Exactly.
Did you have any situations or bad experiences with the crews? And I'm sure you did.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
Any crazy stuff?
Well, not necessarily with the whole crew, but with some specific traits.
Yeah.
That I was expecting something better and they weren't there, and basically we ended up not using them anymore. I always have to pay them, but but they know that I won't hire them back. I understand that sometimes things happen. Let's say with my crew, right? If they start doing something and then suddenly something happens where they need to go back, I know for sure that they're going to go back and fix that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not necessarily everybody is like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, with some of the trades, they, as soon as you pay them back and you say, hey, you know what, something went wrong with what you installed or something like that. And if they don't want to go back, then that's an issue, right? You pretty much, they lose all the trust that we have on them. And so we will never use them again.
Yeah. Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. So all right, we talked about the Scottsdale property last year where you made $120K profit. Took 8 months, but you made it happen.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in the last 20 years you also had properties where you lost money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, because of the market, sometimes you don't make what you expect to make. You know, and that's the thing. You have to be willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even if you lost, let's say if you lose some money at the end of the day, you're better off you selling it at a loss and move on to the next project instead of holding it too long. If you hold it too long, you're going to lose even more and more
Yes,
and more.
yes.
You know, so
I
you-
learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah. You have to be willing to do that.
All right. Anything else you think, let's say, agent that hasn't done flips or wants to get into the flipping game, anything else that they should take into the consideration?
Well, again, they should talk to someone that has done that in the past. Okay.
Perhaps even like partner with them on the first deal.
If they want to do it that way.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Is that something that
actually.
you're open to? Let's say one of the agents would reach out to you, say, "Hey, Omar, I want to partner with you on my first deal, my second deal, whatever that is." Is that
Yes.
something that you do?
Let me just tell you what I do. Like a lot of the members of my crew, that's how they got into the business as well, because they wanted to partner with me. I taught them the ropes and I taught them how it was done. And now they do their own thing.
Yeah.
But because we partnered in the first deal. And now the members of my crew basically have a lot of the houses paid off. And now they're basically think as an investor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's basically what they became after we partner up with our first deal. So an agent would be basically the same thing. If they wanted to partner up, we can do that.
Yeah.
Can
I'm just curious to know
definitely
how many agents in our brokerage actually know that you do flips for a living.
I don't know.
That's
a
the
good
thing.
question.
It's just like there's so much information, there's so much knowledge that you can share. And I know there are some agents that want to, get into this game. They want to wholesale, they want to flip. I flip homes with some of my agents as well, right? But like having you as one of the mentors, I think.
Okay,
and
thank you.
you've been doing this for such a long time. It's going to be huge for any agent that wants to get into this game.
Yeah, if they ever want to do that, I'll be more than happy to share what I know. Probably don't know everything, but
None of us know everything, but
whatever I know, I'll be willing to
the amount
share.
of information that you know from your experience, you're on a completely different level. You can definitely help anyone who wants to get into this business.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so what does it look like for you? Let's say you and I were God willing, sitting down again, maybe 5 years down the road.
Hopefully not that long.
But let's say 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you see your business heading? What does it look like for you? Are you still planning to flip? Are you still planning to sell real estate? Or are you planning to maybe spend more time with your family, traveling, all of those things?
Like I told you, I feel so blessed about being part of real estate that I don't see myself not being part of real estate even in my golden years, right? Somehow or another, I think I'm going to be involved.
Yeah. How old are you?
51 now.
Oh, you're definitely getting into your golden years.
Well, hopefully, never know. But that I don't see myself like stepping away from real estate at all, in some way, shape, form, right? But at the end of the day, I would like to be able to provide like my kids with a little bit of the knowledge that I've gathered through my life, so they can take advantage of real estate. They don't necessarily have to do it as a career, but I want him to take advantage of the things that real estate can provide as an industry, as an investment. Whether or not they do it, it's a different story. But I would like them, to be able to at least have that opportunity to get some investment properties, maybe some rentals, things of that nature.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
Three kids.
Yeah,
Oh, like me. 3 kids.
Yeah.
And what are their ages?
Alan is 28, Jimena is 22, and Jair is 20.
20.
Yeah.
I know Alan is in real estate.
Yes.
But he's changing his trajectory, his path.
Yeah.
But he's still going to be in real estate.
Correct.
What about the 2 other ones? Are they want to be in real estate still?
They've always been around it with me being the real estate agent and a real estate investor, but I don't necessarily see them as being realtors. My daughter is a manager at Dutch Bros, and my other kid is involved with another cousin of his, and he also works with Quick Trip, and is helping a cousin of his with his plumbing business.
Interesting.
So
I love it. That's great. I mean, your kids are a little bit older than mine. So mine are like 18, 15, 14. So they're getting into that stage where they have to start thinking, making decisions, what's next for them. And like what we were talking about before we started recording is like, man, with all this AI, with the AI emergence, like I feel for those individuals that in the like teens, 16, 17, 18, thinking about going to college, but then, going to college for what? What degree? Because you don't know 3-4 years down the road or 5 years down the road if the job is actually going to even exist or not.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully real estate sales is still going to be around 5 years down the road or
Yeah,
10 years
hopefully,
down the
yeah.
road. There's all the other trades.
Yeah, this world has changed so much in the last few years.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with everything that's going on. And it's scary. You know, technology nowadays is so much more advanced, in my opinion, to what it was when I first started in real estate.
Yeah.
And you know, I see kids like the young generation of agents learning so much more than I did in the past. But in a way, I think that they're just focusing too much in technology a lot of times, and they are putting aside like the relationships
Yeah. Yeah.
that sometimes we need to be part of as well in order to accomplish the goal that we want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology is a great tool. I think AI is definitely a great tool. Is it eventually gonna replace us? I hope not. But like, there's certain tasks and responsibilities and activities that we all do are probably gonna get replaced by the AI, which is perfectly fine. But I think in real estate or just in general, human touch is very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Real estate is contact sport. We know that. And I think one thing, especially for the young people, they have to realize, and I have these conversations with the young agents, right? They think that by posting things on socials, they're going to be able to build their business. Maybe eventually they will. But the way you still build a business nowadays is by talking to people,
Yes.
meeting with people, right? Developing and building a relationship with those people.
Yeah.
Like in your situation for the past 25 years, right?
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons why you are where you are and you're continuing to grow is because of those relationships, right? Because you lead with value, you help them, right? And in exchange, right, they continue to work with you, they continue to refer business to you, right? And you're staying on top of mind with them.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's say you have an agent that wants to learn a little more about flipping business.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, how would they get in touch with you? Is it through social media?
They
Is it
can,
your-
they can
your
reach out to
phone?
me either by contact me in Facebook or Instagram
What's your handle on Facebook and Instagram?
just my name, Omar. Yeah,
Okay.
Omar Zavaleta, and that's basically it. Or you know, I can provide my phone number, Melissa. You can call me, and whatever help I can give them, whatever advice I can give them, I'll be more than happy to.
Love it. All right.
Okay.
Omar, I appreciate you,
Alan,
man.
thank you very,
I
very
enjoyed
much
the
for having me.
conversations.
Same
Yeah.
here.
You know, and hopefully we'll do it again.
That's a goal.
All right. Take
Okay.
care.
Take care. Thank you.